The sight of the HOA Karen scrambling away from my cabin with my two big dogs in hot pursuit isn't something I'll forget anytime soon. Her face, which was a mask of pure terror, was a huge contrast to the smug attitude she'd been giving me for the past 3 months. She thought my quiet retreat was a soft target. She thought the guy living inside was someone she could just push around and intimidate. Well, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. But to really get how we got to that point, the moment my two gentle giants turned into furious guardians, we need to rewind 3 months to when she first decided my peaceful sanctuary was her new personal project. It was a decision that would end in her total humiliation. Section 1, Sanctuary and the Serpent. It all started when I finally bought my grandfather's cabin. It's not a mansion by any stretch. It's a modest but sturdy 2-bedroom cabin by a serene lake, surrounded by pine trees that give it this amazing sense of isolation. For me, after 20 years of city life and a high-stress finance job, this cabin was more than just a building. It was a promise of peace, of quiet mornings watching the mist rise off the water with a coffee in my hand, and of living life at my own speed. I'm a pretty low-key guy, a black man in my early 40s. I just want a place to decompress, read my books, and hang out with my two best friends, Zeus and Apollo. Zeus is a king Corso, 130 pounds of pure loyalty, with a head the size of a small boulder. Apollo is a German shepherd, sleek and smart, always watchful. To me, they're the biggest, goofiest teddy bears you could imagine. They spend most of their days sunbathing on the deck, chasing squirrels with a hilarious lack of success, and following me around the house, their tails thumping a constant, reassuring rhythm against the floor. They're my family, but they also have a job they take very seriously, protecting their home and their human. It's an instinct I never had to teach them. My first run-in with a woman who would become the villain of this story was less than a week after I moved in. I was on the front porch enjoying the sun when a spotless white SUV crunched to a stop at the end of my long gravel driveway. Out came a woman I'd later learn was named Barbara. She was probably in her late 50s, with a helmet of perfect blonde hair, an expensive tennis outfit, and a clipboard she was holding like a royal scepter. She marched up my driveway with an attitude that immediately put me on edge. No, hello. No, welcome to the neighborhood. She just stopped about 20 feet from my porch, squinted at the cabin, and said, "The trim on your shutters is not an approved color." I blinked and took a slow sip of my iced tea. Zeus, who was snoozing at my feet, lifted his massive head, and a low rumble started in his chest. I put a hand on his back to calm him. "I'm sorry," I said, keeping my voice level. "Who are you?" "I'm Barbara," she announced, as if that explained everything. "I'm the head of the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association, and that color," she pointed a finger, "is forest green. The bylaws clearly state all trim must be eggshell white or country beige." I stood up slowly. "Ma'am, with all due respect, my property isn't actually part of your HOA. My grandfather built this cabin before the HOA even existed. It's grandfathered in. I've got the deed right inside if you want to see it." She just waved a hand dismissively. "Nonsense. All properties in Maple Ridge are under our jurisdiction. It's for the integrity of the community." She scribbled on her clipboard. "You'll get a formal violation notice in the mail. You have 30 days to comply." And with that, she turned, marched back to her SUV, and drove off, leaving me in a cloud of dust and disbelief. Apollo, who'd been watching from the doorway, let out a single, sharp bark, as if to say, "Good riddance." I just shook my head. I thought it was a joke, some weird power trip. I had no idea it was a declaration of war. Section 2, the escalation. The formal violation notice actually arrived. A crisp letter detailing my transgression and the $100 fine. I laughed, tore it up, and threw it away. I figured that was the end of it. I was so wrong. Over the next month, the letters kept coming, and the fines started piling up. Now, it was a whole list of new violations. My grass was apparently half an inch too long. The small fire pit in my backyard was an unapproved structure. and my dogs, Zeus and Apollo, were a potential nuisance who needed to be registered with the HOA for a fee, of course. This wasn't funny anymore. This was harassment. I drove into town and met with a local lawyer who looked over my documents. He confirmed what I already knew. "You're rock solid," he said. "Your property is explicitly excluded from the HOA's charter. They have zero authority here. What they're doing is basically extortion." He drafted a formal cease and desist letter, citing the property laws and warning Barbara and the HOA that any more contact would be met with legal action. We sent it certified mail, and I got the little green signature card back a few days later, signed by Barbara herself. For about a month, it was blissfully silent. I started to relax, thinking the lawyer's letter had worked. I went back to enjoying my quiet life. I built a small woodshed for the winter, spent my mornings fishing, and just hung out with Zeus and Apollo. Then, the psychological warfare began. It was subtle at first. Little notes left under my windshield wiper. "Your woodshed is an eyesore." Loud barking reported. Then she started driving by, slowly, multiple times a day. Her white SUV became this constant, lurking presence. One Saturday morning, I was woken up at 7 a.m. by someone pounding on my front door. I stumbled out of bed, heart racing. Zeus and Apollo were already at the door, growling, hackles raised. I looked through the peephole, and there was Barbara, clipboard in hand, looking furious. I opened the door a crack, leaving the chain lock on. Zeus let out a bark that shook the whole doorframe. "What do you want, Barbara?" I asked. "I am here to conduct a property inspection," she declared, trying to see past me. "I have reason to believe you are running an unlicensed kennel and have built unpermitted structures." "Barbara, you are trespassing," I said, my voice low and serious. "I sent you a legal notice. You have no authority here. Leave my property. Now, I have every right," she shrieked. "You are a danger to this community. I will not be intimidated." "You're the one pounding on my door at 7 in the morning," I shot back. "Leave. This is your final warning." I shut the door in her face and locked the deadbolt. I could hear her muttering about how I just made a grave mistake. I spent the rest of the morning documenting everything, just like my lawyer said. He told me to start building a case for restraining order. It only got worse. She started calling the sheriff's department for welfare checks, claiming she'd heard gunshots or was worried because she hadn't seen me. Each time, a deputy would show up, apologize, see that I was fine, and leave, rolling their eyes. They were getting to know both of us pretty well. The turning point came when she crossed a line. She started trying to get onto the property when I was gone. My security cameras, which I had installed after the second welfare check, caught everything. I had footage of her trying my front door, then walking around back and peering into my windows. She even jiggled the lock on the back door. It was chilling. She wasn't just a nosy Karen anymore. She was becoming a real threat. It's crazy how far some people will go when they think they have a little power, right? Have you ever had to deal with a neighbor or an HOA that just wouldn't quit? Let me know your story in the comments. And if you're enjoying this and want to see how it ends, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the epic conclusion. Section 3, the payoff. The day of the final showdown started like any other. I had an early meeting in the city, a 2-hour drive away. I left around 8 a.m., with Zeus and Apollo snoozing in the living room. They have a doggy door to a big, fenced-in backyard, so they can go in and out. I set the alarm, locked up, and headed out. What I didn't know was that Barbara was watching. My security camera later showed her SUV pulling up down the road just 5 minutes after I left. She sat there for almost an hour, just watching my house. She must have assumed my dogs went with me. She must have thought my cabin was empty. An easy target. Around 9:30 a.m., she made her move. The front porch camera recorded her marching up the driveway, clipboard in hand, a smug look on her face. She tried the front doorknob. Locked. She then walked around to the back of the cabin, right into view of the camera I had hidden overlooking the deck. The audio picked her up muttering to herself. Authority to inspect safety violations brought this on himself. It took her a few minutes. but she managed to jimmy the back door lock open with what looked like a credit card. The footage even showed her smile as the door clicked open. That smile lasted for about 2 seconds. The moment that door creaked open, 2 sleeping giants came to life. Zeus and Apollo aren't yappy dogs. They don't bark at every little noise, but an intruder crossing the threshold of their home that triggered something deep and primal. The living room camera caught it all. Zeus was up first, with a low growl that you feel more than you hear. Apollo was on his feet a split second later. As Barbara stepped inside, they went off. It wasn't an attack. It was a coordinated, terrifying display of defense. Zeus let out a series of deafening barks that echoed through the cabin. He charged forward, not to bite, but to physically block her path, a living wall of muscle. Apollo moved to her side, snarling, lips pulled back to show a serious set of teeth. Barbara froze. The color drained from her face. The clipboard, a little symbol of power, fell from her hand and clattered to the floor. She let out a high-pitched, strangled scream of pure panic. She expected an empty house. She did not expect 200 pounds of furious, protective canine. She turned and ran. She scrambled back out the door, stumbling on the deck stairs. But the dogs weren't done. Their job was to get her out and make sure she stayed out. They chased her off the deck and across the lawn, nipping at the air around her heels, their barks a relentless chorus. They chased her all the way down my long driveway, a terrified woman in a tennis outfit fleeing from 2 dogs who were the absolute masters of their territory. She didn't stop until she hit the main road, where she practically threw herself in front of a passing car that screeched to a halt. The second she was off my property, Zeus and Apollo stopped. Job done. They stood at the edge of the driveway for a moment, watched her, and then trotted calmly back to the house, tails held high. The aftermath. By the time I got the security alert on my phone and raced home, 2 sheriff's deputies were already there. The person whose car she flagged down had called 911. I found the deputies looking at my pried-open back door. Zeus and Apollo were just sunbathing on the porch, looking about as threatening as a pair of slippers. "I think I know what happened," I said, and pulled out my phone. I showed them the footage. The senior officer, Deputy Harrison, watched with a grin that kept getting wider. When it got to the part where Barbara was fleeing down the driveway, he had to stifle a laugh. "Well, sir," he said, turning to me, "your dogs seem to be excellent judges of character. She claimed they attacked her, but this video clearly shows her breaking and entering your home. They were just defending their territory. Do you want to press charges?" "Absolutely," I said without a second's hesitation. They arrested Barbara later that afternoon. I'm told the look on her face when they put her in the squad car, right in front of her perfect house, was priceless. She kept insisting she had HOA authority, and Deputy Harrison just calmly replied that HOA bylaws don't beat state criminal law, and breaking and entering is a felony. The news spread like wildfire. The HOA board, facing a huge lawsuit and public embarrassment, imploded. An internal audit, started because of the scandal, later revealed Barbara had been embezzling funds for years. She was kicked off the board, faced multiple criminal charges, and I got a permanent restraining order against her. Peace has finally returned to my cabin. The white SUV no longer lurks down the road. The only mail I get is junk mail and magazines. Life is quiet again. As I'm writing this, Zeus is asleep on a rug, snoring loudly, and Apollo is at my feet with his head on my knee. They are my sanctuary's true security system. They're my family, and they taught an entitled Karen a lesson she will never forget. Never mistake a quiet man for a weak one, and never, ever trespass when there are good dogs on guard. That's the end of my HOA Karen nightmare. Justice was served, and my dogs got extra steaks for a week. If you loved seeing this Karen get what she deserved, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed for more stories of sweet, satisfying revenge. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.